Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is sort of an open mic. Now, here's what happens. Now, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we save time to take live questions from the audience, but we don't always have time to get around to all the questions that get sent in. So what we do is we sometimes save those for companion videos, or we pick up those questions on the next show that we do. Now, also on the weekends, that's all we do is take live questions. So what was going to happen was today is Sunday, January 12th. Yesterday, on Saturday, January the 11th, I was going to do an open mic where we were going to do the leftover questions from Friday's show and do all the open mic questions on Saturday. But what happened was my entire neighborhood had all of its internet service go out, like just out. And it was out for like 12 hours, and it came back on, and then it went back off again. So clearly, who knew that I need internet service to do my live stream? So I wasn't able to do it yesterday. So this is a special pre-recorded version of Open Mic where we are going to get caught up on the leftover questions from Friday and do all the open mic questions that got sent in yesterday that we unfortunately didn't get a chance to actually do. So with all that said and out of the way, let's dive right into it and start getting to these questions on this beautiful Sunday. And we're going to start off things here with Slim Trav, who wrote in, DJ Khaled making Bad Boys 3 album. That's marketing. Can I just say something about DJ Khaled? I like a lot of his music, very, very much. But he does this one thing that makes it difficult for me to get past the opening of his songs, which is like every one of his songs starts with, "We the best music, DJ Khaled," and then he says his own name, right? Like if every single Justin Bieber song started with, "I make awesome music, Justin Bieber," as every song starts, we would think he was an idiot, right? And so I really, really love a lot of DJ Khaled's music, but that part irritates me so much. Anyway, D308X writes in, John, are you going to watch the new Dracula show on Netflix? It's really good. 3 episodes, 90 minutes each. Some people didn't like the last episode, but I loved it. You know, it's funny you mentioned that because Kaori was over here the other night with me and Ann, as she often is, but she was hanging out. She goes, guys, I think we should watch this Dracula show, because she'd started watching it, and she also said it was really good. So as a matter of fact, yes, I've got it on my mental queue to watch Dracula. That's one that has caught my interest. I remember I wasn't all that intrigued by it when I first heard about it, but as I've been hearing from some people I know saying they're actually quite liking it, and I didn't even know it had started, so color me surprised. But then I instantly went, well, okay, it's Dracula. I'm kind of a sucker for Dracula stuff, so sign me up. So I am going to be checking it out, D308. I'm not sure when exactly, but hopefully soon. All right, the Alpha Nerd writes, I think Scott Derrickson leaving Doctor Strange 2 is a scheduling issue. It's not. Maybe he wanted more time that would push the movie back, and Disney said that's not happening. What do you think? Nope, I completely don't agree with that for a couple of reasons. One, it's a much better PR move to say, scheduling conflicts than it is to come out and admit creative differences. So if it actually was scheduling conflicts, that's the least amount of PR damage. It's the least amount of PR damage. Say it's a scheduling conflict. That's easy. But creative differences. On top of that, I don't believe it's a scheduling conflict. Scott Derrickson's already had 2 years to think about this Doctor Strange 2. He's had years to think about it. I mean, if Scott Derrickson isn't ready to do his vision of Doctor Strange 2 right now, then there's something wrong with Scott Derrickson. But I don't believe there's something wrong with Scott Derrickson, so I really do believe it is the dreaded creative differences. And maybe he was right, maybe Disney was right, who knows? But no, I don't believe it was a scheduling thing, because I think they just would have said scheduling thing. Plus, if it is a scheduling thing because Scott Derrickson needed more time, he's already had years to prep his story. He's had years. So I really do believe it is the dreaded creative differences. All right, Jay Meister 25 writes, nervous for Strange 2. Nervous for Strange 2 now, sad face. Well, I don't see why. I mean, I think it's an unfortunate thing. I'm bummed out that Scott Derrickson is not doing Doctor Strange 2. But why would we worry about it? Kevin Feige has been at the controls of every single MCU movie's come out. It doesn't matter who the director was. Obviously, each director has brought something unique and different and significant to the table. But at the end of the day, with all the MCU films, it's Kevin Feige pulling the strings. He's not on set doing the directing, but he's the one who dictates where it goes. And he's the one who's done a almost perfect job of selecting directors for their individual films. So it's still Kevin Feige. As long as Kevin Feige's there, I don't think there's anything to be nervous about at this point. Anyway, Velushkin writes, who sends in a really large super chat. Thank you, Volushkin, for supporting the channel on that level. Hey, John, boy, your rant video sure is getting a lot of buzz all over YouTube, but people love drama. And whatever, I contributed to it, so take that for what it is. LOL. Anyway, my question is, with the new Star Wars news going back to you, with the new Star Wars news going back, I don't know what that means. Do you think Darth Revan or Malak will come? That's what I want to see. So basically what I believe Volushkin's referring to is that there's been news come out. Remember, it hasn't been officially confirmed, but news has come out from makingstarwars.net, which is usually pretty reliable. Not 100%, but usually pretty reliable. And they came out with a story saying that the new Star Wars films will take place 400 years prior to the events of Star Wars A New Hope in an era they call the High Republic era, and which is pretty intriguing to me. Do I think Darth Revan or Malak will be a part of it? I honestly don't know. Because the real fact of the matter is, as much as hardcore Star Wars fans want to think everybody loves these characters that we love that were part of the extended universe, they don't. The vast, vast, vast majority of the audience who have gone to see Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker have never heard of Darth Revan or Darth Malak. They've just never heard of them. So on that level, they're actually kind of insignificant. And by insignificant, I don't mean as far as the lore goes to you and I who understand the lore, but insignificant as far as having them as characters isn't going to be a draw for the general audience. And that's irrefutable. You can't argue that. They're not going to be a draw for the general audience. It'll turn a lot of us on who are hardcore about this stuff, but to a lot of people, they just won't care. So they could. It's absolutely a possibility. But is it necessary? No. See, they could do what like Jon Favreau just did with The Mandalorian, and what non-hardcore Star Wars fan knew anything about the Darksaber? Very few. But they decided to make that a part of it anyway. So you can absolutely make an argument that they could do that with Revan and Malak. I just don't think they will. And I'm not saying they won't. Be very, very clear about that. I'm just saying if I had to bet $1 on it right now, I would guess that they're not going to do that. But the Darksaber says they could. So we'll kind of have to wait and see. Honestly, here's the bottom line, though. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And here's why it doesn't matter. Because Doctor Doom is one of the greatest villains in comic book history. They put Doctor Doom in 3 Fantastic Four movies and they all sucked. Right? So it doesn't matter if you get a character who was great in lore. Unless it's executed the right way, it won't matter. At the same time, if you get a character that none of us have ever heard of, but you write that character magnificently, then we're all going to love the character. So it kind of leaves me in a position that, I mean, I'm interested if they come out and say, you know, Revan or Malak or Bane or whatever will be part of it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it really won't matter which character they choose as far as how quality or lack of quality will the movie be. It's all going to be about how do they execute whichever character they get. How are they going to execute whichever character they get? So that's what we're going to have to wait and find out. And it's going to be interesting to see which way they decide to go with that, Volushkin. Let's probably don't have to wait very long. We probably, I don't think it's going to be a 6-month wait before we get some idea about what this next movie is going to be. I think it's going to be fairly soon. So hopefully we won't have to wait very long. All right. Volushkin also writes, also just got a Jedi Fallen Order. Can't wait to start. And you should just use the movie chat if they won't give you movie talk. Ain't going to be being sued. Just take it and embrace your dark side, John. Well, I mean, I think theoretically, this is all coming up from, I put out a tweet saying, hey, Collider, since you've canceled Movie Talk, can I just take the name back? Since I came up with it, can I just take it back? It was kind of half joking. I don't think they're going to give it back to me. And yes, I know my law. I could just take it. Movie Talk has never been trademarked. It's 2 generic phrased words. All that. I could just call John Campea's Movie Talk. And nobody could say anything about it. But it would be in poor taste. It would be tacky. I think I would only take the name Movie Talk back and make it a part if Collider gave me their blessing to do so. I think otherwise it's tacky. Just like if I was still there, let's say I was still there, I was still running Movie Talk. Theoretically, somebody else, say Joe Smith, Joe Smith could theoretically start their own show called Joe Smith's Movie Talk. They could do that, although I would think it's tacky if I was still running Movie Talk, right? So since I would feel that way if I was still in charge of it, then I want to respect that since I'm not the one in charge of it. So I could do it, but it'd be tacky. I wouldn't want to do it without the blessing. So anyway, that's just the way I feel about that. Thank you for suggesting that, though. I appreciate that. All right, Jimmy Gelentine writes, sorry about sending you the We Got This Covered link on Twitter. I hope I didn't offend you. Oh, not at all. Please accept this super chat. No apology necessary. So what happens is, and Jimmy, please, you did nothing wrong, my friend. A lot of people, when they come across interesting things online, they send it to me, which is, I appreciate that very, very much. However, a lot of the more fantastical sounding stuff comes from WeGotThisCovered.com. That's honestly, the name of that site might as well be WeMakeShitUp.com. Seriously, that might as well be the name of the site. WeMakeShitUp.com. I'm not saying they never are accurate, but they're accurate so little of the time that you should never take anything, any breaking scoop that comes out of that site seriously. You should never take it seriously. There are actually websites dedicated to keeping track of how often WeGotThisCovered.com news stories are actually legitimate and turn out to be real. And I think it ended up being, I can't remember, but it was just flying over Twitter. I think somebody did a study on it's like 7% of the time. So basically, unless it's like 70+%, I wouldn't pay any attention to it. So what I've asked my viewers is, if you're sending in a story as a potential main topic for the show, don't bother sending it in if the source of the story is WeGotThisCovered.com, because there's no point. So what happened was Jimmy sent in a story to me on Twitter saying, John, did you see this? And it was something fantastical, of course, because that's what We Got This Covered does. They write these fantastical headlines. And I wrote back to him. I said, dude, don't ever send me, like, I didn't mean it for it to sound like a reprimand. I said, hey, just don't send me news stories if the source of it is We Got This Covered. I mean, 1 out of 15 chance that maybe it could end up being legit, but if it is legit, then other sources will come up with it too. So, but you didn't do anything wrong, Jimmy, so don't feel like you need to apologize, my friend. Anyway, Carlos Sosa writes, hey, John, did you ever watch the Wonder Years TV series? I never really did. Not really. I grew up watching the reruns and I fell in love. It had so much heart. Best television ever. Listen, Carlos, I was never really a viewer of it, but you are not the only person I know that loved that show and talks about it constantly. Like I got a couple of friends of mine that talk about that show constantly. And they loved it and they adored it. And it was part of their growing up years. A lot of people love that show, man. It gets referenced to me a lot. It's one of those shows. I've got 5 or 6 shows that are older now and have been off air for a while that I've got on a list of mine that's like, someday I'm going to get around to just sitting down and binging this. Someday I'm just going to sit down and binge this. Kind of like what I did for The Shield. Or not The Shield, sorry, The Wire. Because I watched The Shield. But I never had... The Wire was off TV for years before I finally got around to watching it. Then finally one weekend, I was like, I'm sick one weekend. I'm not going out anywhere. I'm going to hunker down. I'm going to watch The Wire. Oh my God, so good. But anyway, I've got a kind of a list of shows that are like that. And Wonder Years, just because so many people like it, it's never really appealed to me, I'll be honest, but because so many people I know love it, I got to check it out at some point. All right, let's see. Comic Doctor writes in, Christian Bale equals Beyonder. I mean, well, look, let's be honest. Christian Bale, with the word coming out that he's in talks to join Thor 4, which means he probably will. It's a 90% chance that he is joining Thor 4. The honest answer is he could be anybody. He could be anybody. I mean, for all we know, he could be the new Hawkeye. I mean, we just don't know. It could be anybody. I don't think Beyonder is likely. Like, I've already given my list of who I think are the likely candidates, but anything is possible, including Beyonder. All right, John McKinney writes, who would win in a fight? Freddy Krueger, 1984 version, versus Predator, classic Predator. I love you, Freddy, but you don't stand a chance. Oh, no, it depends. In the dream world, Freddy's got all the power. In the dreamscape, Freddy's got all the power. So as much as I vastly prefer the Predator character, not that I dislike the Freddy character, not at all, but I really like the Predator character, despite how many bad movies they put out with Predator. But yeah, that would be no contest. It would be Freddy. All day, every day, that would be Freddy for sure. At least that's how I see it. All right, Black Bono writes, Hey, John, how are you? I'm doing well, thank you, now that I've got internet back. I just want to say this to you. You are amazing, John, and very gifted at what you do. Thank you so much, man. That's very kind. When you read messages from people saying how your show uplifts them, make them smile, just every positive things your show has done, I'm proud of you. Oh, thank you so much, man. And honestly, it is one of the greatest things. I mean, I wish you guys could see like the off-camera conversations that me and Rob have, or me and my wife Ann have, or whatever, when we get these messages from people who share that being a part of this community and enjoying the shows and stuff like that has helped them through difficult times. And everybody's got their own unique story to share. I can't adequately tell you what it does to me and what it means to me without it sounding contrived. But I wish there was some behind the scenes camera you could see, like when I'm reading stuff, because I honestly, it floors me. And a lot of times I'll get these emails and messages, whatever, and I'll almost break down. And then when I read them on camera, when I get like live ones sent in, I don't. And then afterwards, like I'll go and share them with my wife. It is one of the most amazing privileges of doing this job, is that it's not the power of this show. It's the power of storytelling. It's the power of the movie fan community. It's the power of film and television that allows us to escape. And it's not just an escapism. It's I call it an oasis. And the fact that it can do that and have that power, I think, is amazing. The fact that I get to be a part of it and you as a member of the film fan community get to be a part of it, that's one of the most awesome things about doing my job. So thank you for sharing that, dude. I really appreciate that. All right. Blackbone Olala also writes in, I got my AMC A-list. Thank you, John. Hey, listen, AMC A-list is the greatest thing to ever happen to movie fandom. It really is. And now we've got Regal Unlimited, which is not quite as good as A-List, but it's if what you live near is a Regal cinema, it's great. It is so great to have. If you live near Cinemark's got its own movie club membership. Alamo Drafthouse is starting theirs as well. It is, like, honestly, for serious film fans who go to 2 or 3 or 4 movies a month or more, it is the best thing ever to happen. I'm glad you're able to get yours, my friend. All right. Michael W. writes, hey, John and Rob. Of course, Rob's not here right now. This is going to sound crazy, but I've never watched a single Bond film before. Really? So with the new one coming out this April, what should I start at to be best prepared for myself? Well, honestly, since the new one coming out is a part of the Daniel Craig era of Bonds, not to suggest that any films prior to Daniel Craig aren't worth watching, not at all, but I'm just saying, if you're getting ready for this next one, which is the Daniel Craig timeline Bond, then the best thing to do is to go back and start a Casino Royale. That way you don't have 20 plus films you need to get caught up on, yet you'll be completely prepped for this particular saga that they're going to be doing, because they are loosely connected. In some ways it's not loosely connected. Some ways it's very directly connected. But this is a kind of one, it's the Daniel Craig Bond story. So I would suggest the best thing to do is go back and watch Casino Royale, which still is probably my all-time favorite Bond film. I love that movie. Start from there. That way you've only got 3 or 4 you got to get caught up on before the new one comes up, and then bang, you're ready to go. Not all of them are great. But like Casino Royale is incredible. Skyfall is incredible. And the other ones have redeeming qualities as well. But I think if you start there, you'll be good to go for No Time to Die. I think if you do that, you're good to go for No Time to Die. All right. Lords of the Long Box writes, what does your team use to stream in 1080? What type of camera and software? Well, any camera that shoots 1080 will stream 1080. The software I use is a piece of software called Wirecast Pro. That takes in the signal. Then I have a video capture card that's a Magewell HDMI PCI capture card. Those things aren't cheap. The one I've got runs about $800. But there are other much cheaper options you can do. It doesn't have all the capabilities of this one, but it'll capture your HDMI camera. And a lot of cameras, almost every camera out there these days shoots 1080p. And then anything like OBS will let you stream 1080p. So there's a lot of stuff out there that'll let you do it. So you should have a pretty easy time finding that stuff. The cameras I use right now, I go through cameras, but right now and for the last number of months, the cameras I use are Sony A6400s with Sigma 30mm prime lenses. I've just found that they look great. They work great for me, and working with Wirecast, the major capture card, the proper lights, all that kind of stuff, it all goes into it. Okay, Mohammed Ledra writes, I saw 1917 last night. So good. And man, was this movie brilliant. Everything from the cinematography to the brilliant acting. Movie of the year so far for me. What did you think, John and Rob? Appreciate all you guys do. I loved it. I loved it. It's not my top movie of the year. Jojo Rabbit ended up being my top movie of the year. To me, Jojo Rabbit is still the best movie of the year. But it's definitely in my top 10. I don't know where on the list yet. I got to finalize my list. But it's definitely my top 10. I was floored by it. And what most people are talking about for good reason is the cinematography. Not because the other things aren't excellent as well, but the cinematography, how they chose to shoot this movie blew my mind. I mean, it's just so immersive that you feel like you're in it. It feels like you're a part of the story. My one criticism of the film, and it's such a minor little thing, is that the German soldiers in this movie are kind of like stormtroopers. They cannot hit a thing. I mean, they have some pretty clean shots sometimes and cannot hit a thing. Other than that, actually, though, the movie is remarkable. It really, really is. If you haven't seen 1917 yet, make sure you get out and watch it, because I loved it too, dude. All right, Michael Ratke writes, if you're into horror, check out Marianne on Netflix. Ooh. Not surprisingly, there's a lot of stuff on Netflix that I've never heard of because Netflix is terrible at marketing the stuff that's on there. But that sounds interesting. Hold on a second. Let me just put it on my, let me bring it up in my browser. Marianne. And let me see. Oh, it's a series. It's not a movie. Marianne is a series. Okay. I've never even heard of it. I've never even heard of the damn thing. Because again, Netflix is terrible at marketing their things. So I rely on you guys to let me know about some cool stuff on Netflix. The poster's creepy as hell. I'll tell you that right now. So I'll probably have to check that out. Thank you for the recommendation, Michael. Okay, Joseph Bugeja writes, hey, John, big fan. Thank you so much, Joseph. I've noticed that speedsters aren't getting quite enough love in the MCU. My question, will Quicksilver be brought back in some way? I don't think so. They've had several opportunities. If they wanted to bring Quicksilver back, they've had several opportunities to do it. The one thing about Quicksilver is he's the one hero that has died that stayed dead. I mean, every other hero comes back. They all come back. I mean, I'm trying to think of any other character that is as or more significant than Quicksilver who has died in the MCU and not come back. I'm trying to think of one before Endgame, that is, because they've all come back. They all come back. So, I mean, it's kind of that nice thing. And my biggest criticism of the MCU, and I love the MCU, is that everything is fake death. Nobody ever dies. When you think they die in a movie, they didn't actually die. Or when they do die, they just come back in just a little bit. Like, it's all fake deaths. The one big exception to that is Quicksilver. So, I mean, I hope they don't take that away. I mean, I love the Quicksilver character, but I hope they don't take that away. So, no, I don't think they will bring him back because they've already had many opportunities to do so, and they've decided not to do that. All right, Michael Stankowitz writes, I'm brutal with things. Oh, and Michael sends in a really huge super chat. And listen, when somebody sends in a tip or super chat of $50 or more, if there's actually a question in there, we take that question, we answer it, but then we also answer it again in its own standalone video a little bit later. We're a little bit behind on catching up on the standalone video, so I need to get caught up on that here pretty soon. But we're going to answer it right now, but then we're also going to answer in a standalone video. Michael writes, hi, John. I currently live in a country where there are few cinemas. Cinemas have few movies with English subtitles and local subtitles, which is the only way I like watching movies. Visiting the USA, how should I look for a place to spend my day watching movies? Ooh, well, I mean, it all depends. If you're looking for films in their native English, like most of the Hollywood films are, then you really shouldn't have a hard time. I mean, that might be a big difference. And again, I don't know which country you're from, Michael, but you'll never really have a problem finding a giant multiplex in the United States. If I'm understanding if I'm understanding your question correctly. So wherever in the U.S. you're visiting, it doesn't matter if you're visiting Boston or St. Louis or Cleveland or New York or Los Angeles or on and on and on and on, you will really, the United States of America has no shortage of big multiplexes. So you should be good. You just find a big, if you got like a couple of days you just want to spend watching some movies in their native English and all that kind of stuff, find a big multiplex and like pick 5 or 6 of the movies you want to see, schedule it out, and you can knock out like 6, 7 movies in like 2 days and you'll be absolutely good to go. So good luck with that. And I hope you enjoy your visit when you come to the USA. All right. And then thank you again for sending in and supporting the show on that level, man. We appreciate it very much. And again, we'll answer your question again in its own video sometime this week. Keep your eyes open for it. All right. Spanky the Keeper writes, bought Lost Stars last night. Nice. As per your recommendation, fantastic. Can't wait to binge read the rest of it today. Hashtag the Empire did nothing wrong. I love seeing Sienna's true love for the Empire. Listen, we've been talking about that book a lot lately, and it's written by Claudia Gray. It is a book you may not think to check out because one of the things people say about it, and it's true, it really is at its heart a YA novel. And to a lot of people, I get it. That's like, ew, I'm not going to do that. And I get it. But Lost Stars truly is a very special Star Wars novel that looks at the events of New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi through the eyes of these 2 new characters who get caught up in, who grow up knowing each other. One gets drawn into the Empire, one gets drawn into the Rebellion, and it looks at the events of the 3 core Star Wars movies through their eyes. It is a fabulous, refreshing, original, beautiful take on Star Wars, and I'm glad you checked it out, Spanky. If you have not, I highly, highly, highly recommend Lost Stars. Good on you for checking it out. All right, Double Crit writes, is there a general law separating AMC and Regal theaters? Seems like many cities have one or the other, not both. I have heard it's due to zoning law. I don't really know. As far as I understand, though, it's just a matter of oversaturating a market. Here's one thing I do know. Where I live in Burbank, all right, I live in Burbank, California, about a 10 to 15 minute walk from 3 AMC theaters. The AMC 16, the AMC 8, and the AMC 6. And they're all within a block and a half of each other. I kid you not. They're all within a block and a half of each other. Now, the AMC 16 is one of the busiest, I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd busiest movie theater in North America. So that's the AMC Burbank 16, one of the flagship theaters in the world. The AMC 6 and 8 have always been trashy little theaters. And then just about 2 years ago, they completely renovated them to all have the leather recliners and all that kind of stuff. And now they're beautiful theaters to go to. But I remember when I was still with AMC, I remember asking somebody at AMC, well, why renovate it? I mean, I'm certainly glad that they did because I love that theater now. But at the time, it's like, it's a dumpy little theater. Not many people go to it. Why bother renovating it? And the answer that got given to me, and again, I don't know how, like I said, this is somebody from AMC who told me, maybe they didn't know what they were talking about, but what they told me was, well, we renovate it because if we don't and we give that theater up, some other theater company is going to come in and lease that theater from the mall that it's in. And we don't want to have a competing theater 1 block away from the AMC Burbank 16. So we're going to renovate it and make it do business for us. So I think it's more a matter of, I don't know if that Regal and AMC want to have big multiplexes right close to each other in most cases where there's not enough of a market there to sustain both and they don't want to outprice themselves. I honestly don't know. I mean, there very well could be, but I honestly don't know if there's any sort of like zoning laws about that, though. I think it's more business than it is legal, but I could be wrong about that. It's an interesting question, though. All right. Let's see here. Ishan Bahat writes, who should be the new overarching villain of the MCU? Movies since Doctor Strange have been less grounded, so I feel that the villain should reflect that. I don't think there's any answer to that. But anyway, Ashana goes on to write, I think Marvel's options are Galactus, Dormammu, or Doctor Doom. I think Galactus and Dormammu are better, less grounded candidates. I disagree that they shouldn't be grounded at all. I don't necessarily think there's a problem if they're not grounded at all, but I don't think there's any need for them to be not grounded either. It goes back, though, Ishan, to what I was saying earlier today, earlier in the show about the villains. It doesn't matter who they make. Honestly, everybody's going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But it doesn't matter who they make the new overarching villain. If you don't write the villain great and execute them great, then it doesn't matter if you use the greatest villains in the world. They could make up a totally new villain, but if they write this new villain in a fantastic way and execute it well, then we're going to love them as much or more than Thanos. So it doesn't really matter. So it all depends on the story. What do you want the conflict to be for the heroes? How soon do you want to jump back into an overarching villain? Like, just because they did that a lot with Thanos doesn't mean they need to do it again, or at least not anytime soon. They might, but they don't have to. So could it be Galactus? Well, let's put it this way. Kevin Feige said that he already had the next 5 years plotted out before he even knew that Disney was going to be taking over Fox. So it's unlikely that it's Galactus, because Galactus wasn't part of the equation at the time, and Feige said he already planned it all out. So it's probably not Galactus. That also kind of disqualifies Doctor Doom. Doesn't mean they couldn't change their mind. Doesn't mean Kevin, but he's not the type of guy who just changes his mind willy-nilly. He's got a plan, he sticks with his plan, and then he'll get around to these other characters later. So I think it's unlikely, not impossible, but I think it's unlikely that it'll be Galactus or Doctor Doom for those reasons. Dormammu is already somebody who's in the fold, but I feel like they have settled the Dormammu issue. I don't think we're going to see him back again. I could be wrong, but I don't see him coming back again. And aside from a time loop, there's really nothing anybody could do against him. So I don't think that either. Now, there's a lot of people thought Kang was going to be an Endgame. Didn't end up being the case, but it could be that. There's a lot of different options they have, but at the end of the day, to me, it doesn't matter who they pick. Because whoever they pick, the only thing that matters is, do they execute them well? And if they execute their next big bad well, then it won't matter if they're a popular, well-known villain or not. It's going to be great, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a popular villain or not. If they execute badly, it's going to suck, like Doctor Doom in the Fantastic Four movies, right? So I'm really more concerned about what's the story going to be. Like, don't pick your villain and then shape your story around the villain. Figure out what do you want the basic direction and the basic conflicts to be for your story, and then choose the villain that'll best suit that, and then write it and execute it well. So until we know that, I can't really take a guess, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. Interesting I know a lot of people would love to see it to be Galactus or Doctor Doom, so I mean, maybe it will, but it doesn't seem to be in the cards right now. All right, Raphael Romantic Castillo writes, did you see that Ordinary Love trailer with Liam Neeson and Leslie Manville? Looks amazingly good and heartfelt. I have not seen that. I did not know a trailer for it dropped, to be honest with you. Now, I've been a little preoccupied, admittedly, this weekend with some NFL playoff football. I admit I have been a little bit preoccupied with some NFL playoff football. So don't hold that against me. But no, I have not seen this yet. But listen, Liam Neeson's a terrific actor. So just tell me he's in a movie. I'll at least be curious about it. Doesn't mean every movie he does is great, but just tell me he's in it and I'll at least be curious about it. So I'll have to check out that trailer when I get a chance. All right, Mr. L writes, I'll be disappointed if Doctor Strange loses the horror angle. I was hoping they might be willing to take more risks. Well, listen, let's be clear about something. Right now, we have no idea why Scott Derrickson left, other than creative differences. But anybody who tells you right now that it's because he wanted to go more horror and Kevin Feige didn't want to let him is making it up. Because as of right now, there have been no official word about what these creative differences are. For all we know, maybe Scott Derrickson wanted to make it more funny. Like have horror, but also have more slapstick humor in it to balance it out. And Kevin was like, no, let's not do that. I mean, that's not likely, but that's as possible as anything else right now. So we just got to keep in mind that right now we have no idea what the specific issues were. Everybody's operating on this made up assumption, which could be true, but as of right now, it's just a made up assumption that it's because Scott wanted it to be more horror and Kevin didn't want it to be. And maybe that's the case, but the fact of the matter is nobody knows that. Nobody knows that right now. And so anything suggesting that it could be the case is pure speculation and just making it up. Now, what I would say is Doctor Strange took a fuckload of risks. Doctor Strange was so inherently different. Yeah, it kept that DNA of a Marvel film, but they did so many things in that Marvel film that they had never done in another Marvel film. So clearly they are not adverse to taking risks. That is clearly not the problem here. They're not adverse to taking risks. But at the same time, the MCU has an overall pattern and flow and architecture that Kevin Feige has worked very, very hard to cultivate and has turned it into the biggest box office success of all time. So there's got to be a balance in there. There's got to be a balance in there. Like people say, we want them to take risks, but then Star Wars took some risks and everybody revolted against them. You know, they took some risks in The Rise of Skywalker and a lot of them didn't work for me. They took some risks in Lost Jedi and they didn't work for a lot of other people. So we can say this, we want them to take more risks, but then we turn on them pretty quick when they do take those risks. And I'm not going to insulate myself from that. I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker, but let's just be careful and clear that as of right now, we do not know why Derrickson departed. There's no official word on that, so we'll just have to kind of wait and see. All right, Brianna Trishita writes, sends in a really large super chat. Thank you for that, Brianna. I appreciate that very much. I wonder whether the Doctor Strange news has to do with Scarlet Witch. Maybe Derrickson wanted to kill her and Marvel said no, because if the movie is in pre-production, it can't be something substantial, right? Yeah, I cannot believe it's anything that big. Like, because at D23, at Comic-Con, right? They're all, Derrickson's doing Doctor Strange 2. They already knew at Comic-Con if like Wanda was surviving the Doctor Strange movie. They already knew that. That wasn't going to be in question. At that point, they already knew what the scripts were already written. I mean, they already knew what they were going to be doing. They already knew the outline. They already knew the general direction. They may not have been final drafts or anything, but they already knew where the story was going. So it's not like out of nowhere. Scott Derrickson's not so dumb that he would have just at the last minute 2 weeks ago gone to Kevin Feige's office and go, hey, Kevin, I know we were going to have Wanda survive Doctor Strange, and I know you have plans for her later on, and I know I already agreed to that, but I'm thinking now I want to kill her off. Like, he's not that dumb. He couldn't be that dumb, right? At least I hope he's not that dumb. Of course he couldn't be that dumb. That's just something that would have been, it has to be something more tonally, because they would have already been in agreement on what the main story beats were. They already know who's got to survive, who can't survive, what place certain characters need to be by the end of the movie. All the major story beats would have already had to have been agreed upon. I've got a feeling creative differences stems from more of a tonal issue. The tone of the film, the specifics. Okay, Wanda ends up by the end of the Doctor Strange movie, she's alive, but she's in this place. Okay, that's been agreed upon. But maybe Scott wanted to go a real different way of how she gets to that place than Kevin wanted, or all that kind of stuff. But again, I believe it's probably more of an issue of a tonal thing than a major mile marker thing, because all the mile marker stuff would have already been agreed upon well in advance. So maybe we'll find out some interesting stories about that later on, but for now, that's where I think it's probably going to end up. Okay, excellent question, Brianna. Well thought out. All right, Michael Rowley writes, regarding Marvel, their brand is all about the long-form, interconnected story, which requires the individual directors to make sacrifices to their vision. That said, I feel like we're missing out on some more out-there stories, which we see in the DCEU. Okay, this goes, Michael, all the way to why I have always made the argument that the television universe and the movie universe should be kept completely separate. Disney Plus is a different thing. Disney Plus is kind of a brand new thing. It's not really television. It's sort of a brand new thing, and that's fine. But I've always felt like, and clearly they agreed, the Netflix stuff was never really connected to the MCU. We know that now. But they kind of said it was. Then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was connected. But look what the DCU did. They disconnected their television stuff from the movie stuff, and their television stuff has been able to be really successful because it's been completely different from their movie stuff. Nothing connecting the television world to the movie world. They could do whatever they wanted to do, be whatever tone they wanted to do, have any hero, whatever they wanted them to be, and they've enjoyed a lot of success. DC right now is doing something where they have a DCEU, but they're also doing movies outside of the DCEU. And I like it because you are giving yourself you're taking the handcuffs off creatively and you're letting some filmmakers try some really different things without it affecting your major cinematic universe. Joker's not connected to the DCEU in any way, shape, or form. So they were able to go in there and make a movie. Todd was able to go in there and make a movie without having to worry about how it fits into the DCU, and he could tell whatever story he wanted, and it turned out it's probably going to end up getting a nomination for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. All right, that's the result. I have been yelling and screaming for years, and everybody laughs at me when I've done it, but now everybody's starting to figure out why I was saying it. I've been yelling and screaming for years that we need more standalone comic book movies. Some movies that are outside of a shared cinematic universe. And now people are starting to realize, maybe that wasn't a bad idea. Because now we got Joker outside of the shared cinematic universe, did its totally own thing, totally disconnected from all that stuff. And it's one of the best films of the year. And is probably going to get nominated for Best Picture. I just think you give these filmmakers some great ideas and a great freedom to explore ideas that you just can't do within the shared cinematic universe. The MCU, you're right, is foundationally built on the interconnectedness. But man, I gotta tell you, it'd be awfully fun to see them create a different brand that's just meant for one-shot stories. Some really good, wonderful, well-told one-shot stories that have no connection and no consequences for the overall MCU. I would just always love to see that, and hopefully they'll get to that at some point because they've already crushed it. DC's already crushed it with Joker, and I'm guessing they're going to crush it with Batman, which appears to be outside of the DCU. We don't know that for sure yet, but it appears that that's the case. And hopefully Marvel will catch wind of that, and they'll be able to try some different things. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. All right. Senpaigar writes, are there plans for the new Bumblebee Transformers movie? Yeah, according to the studio and according to Hasbro, yes, they are moving forward with new ones. We don't know a lot of the details, but they are moving forward. Michael Stankiewicz writes, you should have told about Red Cross earlier, John. I told about the Red Cross at the very beginning of the show. I'm not quite sure how much earlier I could have done that. Dumbledore Calrissian, I love that name. Dumbledore Calrissian writes, top 5 movies I feel are somewhat underrated. Number 5, We Bought a Zoo. That is actually a nice little movie. Number 4, Super. Super's great. I love Super. Super 8. Oh, I disagree. Now I disagree with you. I wasn't a big fan of Super 8. To me, Super 8 was a movie that had an identity crisis. It didn't know what it was trying to be. And literally, that Super 8 is 2 different movies. There was an idea JJ had for 2 completely different movies. He had an idea for this one movie about going back to his childhood, about making movies on Super 8mm and blah, blah, blah. And he was going to make a movie about that. He also had this other idea for a different movie entirely that's about what happens if a military train leaves Area 51 and there's an accident and something gets out? What happens? And so somebody suggested to him, hey, why don't you just take those 2 movies and put them together and make one movie? And it totally made it an identity crisis. So yeah, I thought you were saying Super. I was saying Super's great. Oh, Super 8? Yeah, I didn't love Super 8 so much. Anyway, 3, That Thing You Do. Oh, come on. Everybody loves That Thing You Do. At least everybody who's seen it loves that. Number 2, Prince of Egypt. I agree. That's a nice little animated film that more people should watch. Look at your life through heaven's eyes. Anyway, and number 1, The Count of Monte Cristo, 2002. I really like that movie too. I agree. I really, really do like that movie a lot as well. So you got some nice ones. The only one on your list I'm going to disagree with you, Dumbledore, is Super 8, because I just don't like that movie at all. But hey, maybe that is why it's underrated, because there are people like me who just didn't think it was that good. And there are people like you who do, which is great. All right, John Coakley writes, I donated $20 to the Red Cross. Thanks for using your platform for good. Tip to anyone donating. It's measured in Australian dollars. So to send in 20 USD, I sent in $29. All right. Thank you for that heads up on that. I thought they were more on par. I didn't realize there was that much difference between the Australian currency and the American currency. So I'm learning something new every day. But more importantly to that, John, thank you so much for donating to the cause. And that's awesome of you to do, my friend. All right. Michael writes, for chair. Oh my gosh, sends in a huge super chat for chair. Everyone deserves a good chair. Thank you so much. I've already kind of circled on the calendar when me and Ann are going to go and we're going to look at new chairs. I currently use a chair. For those of you who didn't know, I currently use this chair right now that is literally about 10 years old. If some of you recognize it, this is from the old AMC movie closet days. This chair has been around through all the incarnations of AMC movie talk, and that's what it's there, because I don't spend money on things that don't make the show better. I only put money into things that make the show better for the viewers. The cameras, the lenses, the cords, the capture cards, the software, the lights, whatever else I can. But I don't spend money on things. So for 2.5 years now, I've been sitting on this total just wood plank. And my legs go numb every day. They fall asleep. My ass is sore every single day because I've never actually gotten around to actually getting a real chair. But all you guys have been sending in. So yes, this week, Ann and I are going to go look at getting me an actual really good chair. So thank you for that very much. And thank you so much, Michael, for supporting the channel on that level. That's incredibly, incredibly generous of you. So thank you for supporting the content that you enjoy watching. And my ass will thank you. My ass, John Campea's ass, thanks you very much in the near future. So keep your eyes open for that. Thanks so much, dude. All right. Ross Gerwig writes, do you think that after Wonder Woman 3, when Godot's solo run is done, do you think she could have a presence in Justice League Dark? I don't think so. I don't see why you'd do that. I honestly don't even think Justice League Dark is going to really be a thing. I mean, they're saying it is. I don't think it's really going to be a thing. Hopefully I'm wrong. It'd be interesting to see what they do. But no, I don't see why they would take Wonder Woman out of their mainline story stuff. Wonder Woman's one of the, if not the most popular character they have right now. I don't see why they would take her out of the mainstream stuff and then bring her over to Justice League Dark. So I don't see any rationale as to why they do that. So I'm going to guess no. Nothing's impossible, though. Nothing's impossible, but right now I just don't see the logic behind it. So I'm going to guess not. All right. Colin Tucker writes, are you going to answer my question you lost overnight? I hope I got that in a previous thing. I think I caught up on those ones earlier. At least I think I did. I hope I did. But you might have sent this question in after I already did. So hopefully that all got cleared up. All right. Cillian Murphy writes, hey, John, just letting you and Rob know my name is pronounced Killian. Oh, good to know. Killian. Because I always say Cillian. Hey, listen, don't be offended if I read it again and I say Cillian again. I don't know. I just see the C and I go soft on it, but I'll try to remember Killian, because Killian has sent in a bunch of questions. So I will try to remember that. I will try my best to remember that. Thank you for setting me straight on that. All right. Tara writes, hot take. Marvel can rarely produce a great film, exception being Winter Soldier. At the same time, they can rarely produce a bad film. They will always just be good. A con of the formula, I guess. Well, Tara, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's not a hot take. That's an opinion you have. But there are lots of people who have a completely different opinion than you. There are a lot of people who've seen these movies and it's hit them in very strong, very powerful ways that have left them going, oh my God, this was amazing. I can't wait to go back and watch it again. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be that for you, because all film is subjective. It's going to hit us all in a very, very different way. But your hot take is really just an opinion. And that's fine. That's what we all have, is just opinions. But it's not fact. It is how you perceive the films, and that's great. The reality is, though, the vast, vast, vast majority of filmgoers, and it doesn't mean your opinion's wrong. I'm just saying that the vast, vast, vast majority of filmgoers have a very different opinion. That they very much do make great, fantastic movies. I'm one of them. I think they make great, fantastic movies. I don't think every single one of them is mind-boggling fantastic. I think the vast, vast majority of them are at least very good. Some are better than others, and some aren't so good. Like Iron Man 2 is not very good. Thor: The Dark World is not as good as a lot of the other ones. And so on and so forth. But for the most part, they make some pretty damn spectacular movies. But hey, That's just an opinion of mine, and your opinion is no less and no more valid than my own. So that you're totally entitled to that one, Tara. All right, next up. Tommy Woodward writes, got to my theater to find that despite advertising at 10:30 a.m., had no employee working there. What? It did have a sign that said movie starts at approximately 8 to 15 minutes after showtime. So at least they've got that going for it. First of all, how does a movie theater advertise at 10:30 a.m. showtime and then not have any staff there? Okay, that's unacceptable. Let's move on to the other thing we can deal with. I appreciate, because we've been hearing some reports, Tommy, lately that there are some theaters that are now advertising and posting in their theaters, hey, just so you know, the movie starts about 20 minutes after the listed showtime. That's good and all. That's nice and all. But it's not good enough. If you advertise a movie starts at 8, then start the movie at 8. Or at least a hell of a lot closer to 8 than this 8:28 or 8:35 or 8:40, as some people have been writing in and letting us know. BS. That's great that once you already got them at the theater, you're warning them once they get to the theater, oh, just so you know, your 7 p.m. showtime, the movie might not actually start till 7:20. That's nice when you're telling them after they're already there at the theater. I honestly believe that it should become a law that movie theaters advertise 2 times. They advertise the start of the presentation, 7 p.m., but that they also advertise the actual time the movie begins. The presentation begins at 7 p.m. Okay, that's great. But if the movie doesn't start till 7:30, that's what I want to know. I'm paying you to be there. I'm paying money to be there. I didn't pay money to watch 30 minutes of ads. I'm sorry, I didn't pay you. I mean, I don't know what it costs where you live to buy a movie ticket. Where I live, it costs $15 to $20 to buy a movie ticket. I didn't pay you $15 to $20 so I could sit down and have to watch 30 minutes of ads. So you tell me when the movie starts that I paid you for. You want to advertise show times at 7, movie time starts at 7:30? I'm perfectly good with that. But what is not good enough is to advertise that the movie starts at 7, and then when you already get to the theater, seeing a little sign on the door that says, just so you know, the movie might actually start about 15 or 20 minutes later. Not good enough. It's at least a minor step in the right direction, but not good enough as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, now that's me. Okay, Suthius writes, Mr. C, you can just get a $15 cushion for your chair, but even then, the hydraulics on it, like adjusting the chair is very difficult. It squeaks a lot. The wheels are kind of, this chair is in rough shape. It has taken a lot of beatings over the last 10 years. Although, a cushion probably just on its own isn't a bad idea. All right, Ishan writes, Google John Campea net worth $87 million. I put that up on my Twitter the other day. Somebody shared that with me, that if you Google John Campea net worth, it says I am worth $87 million. Now, for those of you who are really gullible and actually believe that, I can assure you I am not worth $87 million. Hence, a 10-year-old chair with just a hard plank of wood for a seat that I sit on because there's no cushioning left. I am absolutely, and hence me doing the John Campea Show from this glorious spare bedroom instead of doing the John Campea Show from a real studio. Yeah, I can assure anybody who read that no, I am not. My net worth is not $87 million, despite what the internet says. But oh my God, how great would that be? It would be pretty great. I'm not going to lie to you. I would like that very much. All right. Nina Smile writes, since you just mentioned Shazam, did you ever see Chuck? One of my all-time favorites. What is your opinion? Oh, the show Chuck? Oh, yeah. I loved the show. I thought the show was terrific. And it's amazing to see. Let me just bring this up here. It's amazing to see, like, obviously Yvonne Strahovski is doing great, because now she's in Handmaid's Tale, which is like one of the most celebrated and award-winning TV shows on TV right now. You've obviously got Zachary Levi, who is now Shazam and has done so great. By the way, the guy who played Chuck's best friend, Morgan, is played by a guy named Josh Gomez. And I've got a kind of a loose connection to Josh Gomez. There's this girl I know, and she ended up marrying Josh, which is really, really pretty cool. So she's married to Josh. And yeah, so he's doing great. It's great to see all that kind of stuff. And of course, I absolutely loved Adam Baldwin in that. I'm a big Adam Baldwin fan. I'm actually a really, really big Adam Baldwin fan. And I loved him in that show too. But yeah, I thought the last season or so, it started to lose some of its steam a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. But overall, I really did love that show. Yeet my daughter for a rock. I don't know what that means. Purple John Thanos still... Oh, that's right, when I did that video. Purple John Thanos still haunts my dreams. One of my favorite moments of your show. Which video was that for again? I can't remember what we were talking about, but I just did a little visual effect where my skin turned purple. I cannot remember what that video was for, but I just remember thought, oh, this would be a kind of a fun little thing to do. I just remember how many people responded to it, which kind of caught me by surprise, but I'm glad it made an impact. Yeet. All right. Where are we at here? We are at Dimsum05, who writes, Neil Peart, you were too good and pure for us. Rock in peace. Yeah, the passing of Neil Peart. Look, I'll say it. He was the greatest drummer of all time. I'm not just saying that because he was a good Canadian kid. Of course, the drummer for Rush. Greatest drummer of all time. And I remember I wanted to tweet this out, but I thought some people would take it the wrong way, so I just didn't do it. But of course, Neil Peart is a character in the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie, where it turns out he's actually works for aliens, and he's such a good drummer. He has the power to play the drum solo of life, where he can actually bring people back from the dead because of Neil, because the alien is Neil, the drum solo of life, and Neil Peart would play this drum solo and bring things back to life, right? And I wanted to tweet out Neil, the drum solo of life, but I thought that might be taken the wrong way, so I didn't tweet that. But I mean, a huge loss for music fans, man. Huge loss for music fans. All right, Jesse CRA writes, after seeing Uncut Gems, I would love to see this Sadfi brothers next film being the next DC Dark Label movie. I love their directing, including Good Times. Which DC character doesn't matter to me. Todd Phillips as a producer since he started. Yeah, honestly, I don't want them to do a DC film. Why? Because I want to see them do other things. There are a lot of directors doing comic book movies now. I would love to see them continuing to do their own original stuff. After seeing what they did with Robert Pattinson in Good Times, and now seeing what they're doing with Uncut Gems. I mean, and look, I didn't love Uncut Gems as much as a lot of other people did, but I mean, clearly just visionary filmmakers, these guys. I want to see them continue to do films like this. So listen, lots of directors are lining up to do comic book movies. That's fine. I want to see these guys continuing to do this stuff because they're doing some really, really special film, and I'd like to see them focus on that for a while. The comic book movies will always be there for them to come and do a comic book movie, and I love a great comic book movie, but I want to continue to see them doing these types of films because there's not a lot of people who are capable of making these films that they're making right now. I'd like to see them stick with that. That's just me, though. All right. An anonymous viewer sends in a really large donation. Thank you so much. If there's a question in here, we will make it its own standalone video. The anonymous viewer writes in, hey, John, been listening for a few months. Oh, thank you so much. First-time contributor. Love what you do. Thanks for the Red Cross Australia shout-out. Wanted to donate, but wasn't sure where. Kept putting it off. You made it easy and kicked butt into gear. Have fun on Rise of Resistance. Oh, thank you so much, man. And thank you so much for donating to the Australian efforts as well. And by the way, special thank you. I asked everybody at the beginning of the show, listen, if you're going to send in a contribution to the show, I ask you only do that if you're going to match that with a donation to the Australian fund at the Red Cross. And I said, if you can't do both, then just don't send in a question and just send it to the Australian Relief Fund. And thank you to all of you who did that. Like, I've been getting so many messages from you guys who took that to heart, and you went and did that. So thank you so much for doing that. And Anonymous, thank you so much for contributing to that. And thank you for contributing to this show as well. I really appreciate that there are people like yourself who actually support the content that you enjoy watching. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to everybody who took their time, whether they sent in a question here or skipped sending in a question to the show so they could send in their money to the Australian relief effort. Thank you so much for doing that. It's every once in a while, as a film fan community, we get to do something, even if it's just little, to do something really good. So I'm glad that you guys did that. And thank you for your support, dude. All right. Chris Korek writes, hey, John, just wanted to support the channel. Thank you so much. And say thanks for the years of entertainment and insight. I've been following you since before the Man of Steel review. Well, thank you so much for that. Hope you had a good day. Take care. Well, thank you so much, man. It's always nice when people just want to write in and say something nice. And yeah, it is still amazing to me how many people write in years later saying that they first discovered my stuff with the Man of Steel review. It's still absolutely astounding to me just how many people that became the first thing that they watched that I did. And of course the team did at the time, but it's amazing to me how many people did that. So thank you so much for being around that long, Chris. I really appreciate it, man. All right. The Dan Man writes, one of two. Hey, John, have you seen or heard of a film by the name of American Woman, starring the gorgeous Sienna Miller? She plays a young mother whose teen daughter goes missing. Produced in part by Scott Ridley, directed by his son Jake. The film's Rotten Tomato score is 89 and 80. Sienna received rave reviews for her performance and appeared to be headed towards a worthy Oscar nom. However, the film didn't go beyond limited release last summer, barely saw the light of day, should have been a hit. I have not heard of it. Sometimes I say I've not heard of a film and then I look it up. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Of course I've heard of that. Let me see. All right. So there's the film. You know what? I don't recognize it. I don't recognize it. So no, I'm not familiar with this one, but it's interesting. I mean, the audience scores on IMDb should never be paid attention to because they're not verified, but it's got a 6.8 out of 10, which isn't terrible. Actually, that's pretty good. But no, I'm not familiar with this one. Thank you for putting this one on my radar. Where can one find it right now, though? Is it on Netflix now? You said it was unlimited release. I'll keep my eyes open for it because I look, everybody should love Miller. And if Ridley Scott's involved with it, that's pretty cool. Even if it's, I don't know anything, whether his son's a good director or not, but that's something to keep our eyes on. So I was not familiar with this one. Unless I did hear about it at some point. It went one in ear and out the other. But you're right. It never got a wide release. So that's probably why it probably never crossed my desk as much as maybe it deserved to. Anyway, thanks for the heads up on that, Dan, man. I appreciate that. All right. Min Tran writes, was watching 1917 yesterday for about 30 minutes at the end of the, well, let's not go into anything. And they had to evacuate due to a tornado. I can say, oh, that sucks. Clearly that's not the theater's fault. But if you're loving it so far, Min, I can tell you haven't even gotten to the best stuff yet. This is a film that just ramps up the intensity and the tension as it goes through. It's tense. It's heartfelt. It just does so many things right. And the best stuff is yet to come. The best stuff in the movie is yet to come, Min. So sorry about that, but thankfully everybody there was safe though. All right. 50 Shades of Geek writes, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't think of this yet. And I am a little ashamed it took me this long, but better late than never. Christian Bale is in Thor 4. Oh, good for you. We made a joke about that. Oh, good for you. If those of you don't know what that means, there was this, although it's been a number of years, so maybe some people forgot about it or maybe never knew about it. There was a very infamous on-set meltdown that Christian Bale had that got audio recorded of him having this massive meltdown and just ragging on like one of the staff on the movie, one of the crew. And just ragging on. I can't remember if it was the cinematographer or one of his grips. I can't remember. But it is an epic meltdown. And you can still find it. Just go on YouTube and look for Christian Bale Terminator meltdown or something like that. You'll find it. And it's, to this day, it still kind of rocks you. Okay, anyway, thanks for sending that in 50 Shades. All right, Kenneth Colton writes in, hey, John, what are your picks for this weekend's playoffs? Oh, a little bit too late. Titans, Ravens. Listen, I'll tell you right now. I would have picked the Ravens. Just like everybody else in the world, I would have picked the Ravens. I don't think anybody saw the beatdown that the Titans were going to put on the Ravens. Vikings, 49ers, I would have picked the 49ers. Texans versus Chiefs. But boy, when it was 24-0, it didn't look like it was going to go that way. And Seahawks versus Packers. I'm thinking it's going to be Packers, but I'm going to be cheering for the Seahawks. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that Ravens-Titans game, I tell you what, a lot of people lost a lot of money betting on that football game. A lot of people lost a lot of money betting on that football game. I'll tell you that right now. All right, Logan James Kynaston writes, a while ago I mentioned that my sister Emily had bought the copy of The Pride. Oh, that's right. I remember that. After I recommended it to her, she since finished it and enjoyed it, and she wanted me to ask you if you're planning on a sequel. Well, first of all, please thank your sister for me for being ever so kind and buying my novel, The Anniversary. That's my movie. My novel, The Pride. So thank you so much for that. I would love to do a sequel. I did the book in such a way that I had 3 or 4 books kind of roughly sketched out, like very, very roughly sketched out in my head about what I would do in book 2, generally speaking, like not really planned all the details, but generally speaking, what would I do in book 2, and generally speaking, what would I do in book 3? The thing is, it took me like 5 years, because anybody else, it would have taken them 4 or 5 months. It took me 5 years to do it. And I'll just leave it by saying I would love to do a sequel to the book. I would love to. I just don't know that I would ever have the time. So I'm not going to say never, but I certainly can't do one. I'm certainly not going to work on it this year. 2020 is not going to be that. I'm working on a documentary this year. That'll probably end up being terrible, but hey, it's my project, so I'm excited about it. I'm working on a documentary this year, maybe in 2021. If I find that I have a bunch of time to do it, but what I don't want to do is embark on another 4 or 5 year process. I'd have to be able to figure out a way that I could do it and do it like within a year. If I can do that, then maybe I'll write another one. But anyway, again, Logan, thank your sister for buying the book. I appreciate the support very, very much. All right. Gabriel Reed writes, I once bought a wooden car, wooden engine, wooden doors, wooden wheels, wooden seats, put the wooden key in the wooden ignition, wait for it. Wouldn't start. I mean, I'm like, okay, where's this going to go? I'm going to tell you right now, the one good thing I'll say about that joke is I should have predicted the punchline. I did not predict the punchline. Well done, but I'm bang, Gabriel. All right, Steve James writes, I know I'm late to the party, but I just finished The Mandalorian. Couple of weaker episodes, but overall I loved it. The last 2 episodes especially knocked it out of the park. They absolutely did. Could this show finally be what unites the fan base? Can't wait for season 2. No. I think most people can agree that they enjoyed that show, but it certainly doesn't unite the fan base. Not at all. The movies are going to have to do that. So while almost everybody, not absolutely everybody, there are people who didn't think The Mandalorian was all that good and are disappointed by it, and that's totally fair. But I think most people, even people who love the new Star Wars movies and hate the new Star Wars movies, I think, a lot of them all agree that The Mandalorian was really good, but that's not going to be enough to overcome the massive division in the Star Wars fandom these days. Unfortunately, it's going to take the movies to do that. But fandom right now is so ugly that no one's going to like a movie unless the movie does what they want it to do. And that means a movie's going to go one way, and some people are going to like it because it's what they wanted the movie to do, and then some people aren't going to like it because it's not what they wanted it to do. And it's going to take, I don't know, man. It's going to take something really special in the movies to kind of bridge that gap. Unfortunately, I don't think the Disney Plus shows are going to do it, and we've seen no bridging of the gap since Mandalorian came out, despite the fact that the vast majority of people do like it. So no, The Mandalorian isn't going to heal the rift in the fan base, unfortunately. All right. Topher Rocks writes, but I'm glad you enjoyed it, Steve. That's the important thing. Topher Rocks writes, do you like dialogue during the lightsaber battles and movie fights, or prefer them to just battle and not talk? Dialogue adds so much more weight and emotion. No, there's no one answer to that. There's a lot of movie fights where dialogue between the characters wouldn't make sense for a lot of different reasons. Dialogue wouldn't make sense. And then in some, it would. Of course, the greatest example of that is one of the greatest scenes, the greatest scene in the greatest movies of all time. The Emperor's Throne Room duel between Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi. Greatest scene in the greatest films of all time. And that is clearly a fight that has lots of pauses with dialogue that adds to the drama of it. That said, let's stay in Star Wars. I don't like the prequels, but one of the scenes in the prequels that I like very much is the Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul fight scene. That is a scene that dialogue wouldn't make any sense. These are characters who've never even met before. All they know is that they're Jedi and that dude's a Sith. They figured that out. But there's no connection to the characters, right? All I needed to know as a film fan, those two are Jedi, that dude's a Sith, bring it on. And that's all we needed. And so it was appropriate that they didn't have dialogue. And it still played out beautifully. So beautifully that I really love the scene, even though I don't like the movie, right? So there's two great examples just from Star Wars itself, that sometimes dialogue, depending on what's going on in the scene, dialogue in a fight is not appropriate whatsoever. Then there's scenes where, yeah, these characters know each other. They have history. They have this, they have that. And then dialogue becomes something that adds to the dramatic impact of the fight. So then it becomes appropriate. So yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. I don't believe there's any one pat answer. All right. Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John, my friend and I had a crazy debate about what should get the live adaptation treatment. He said Ren and Stimpy. I love Ren and Stimpy. You idiot! I love Ren and Stimpy. I don't know that would make for a very good live action adaptation, to be honest with you. And I said Street Sharks. Okay. Would you be able to do the tiebreaker for this current debate? Thank you and happy Saturday." Well, honestly, I wouldn't vote for either. But if I had to choose one in this particular debate, Russell, I got to go with you. I love Ren and Stimpy. But Ren and Stimpy is made possible because it is not live action. I mean, that only works even remotely because it is in the medium it was meant for, which was animation. I don't know that Ren and Stimpy works in a live action adaptation. Ren and Stimpy is so funny, by the way. Anyway, Street Sharks, while I would not vote for it in general, I think it has much more potential for live action than, say, Ren and Stimpy does. So on this issue, Russell, if I'm the tiebreaker, I'm breaking the tie in your benefit on this one. All right, that's an interesting debate to have. All right, an anonymous viewer writes in, "Also, it might be just me, but the Mandalorian theme music reminds me of the Slave Children theme from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I wonder if it was an intended nod." I'd have to I remember that. Look, most of it when I would listen to it, it's like, man, this music sounds like Creed, because it's the same guy who does the music from Creed, so you can hear a little bit of those similar tones. I didn't personally have that experience watching Mandalorian that I ever thought about the Indiana Jones one. But then again, if I go back and watch that scene from Temple of Doom, maybe I will. So my guess right now, though I could be off, I mean, you could be onto something really interesting. My guess right now is that it was not an intentional nod. But maybe we find out a little bit later on that it actually was, and wouldn't that be interesting? That would be pretty damn interesting. All right, neat observation, Anonymous. All right, Benny95 writes, "Hey, Gio, thanks for the support with the Australian bushfires. Our pleasure. As an Aussie, it means a lot. Also, I'll be heading to the LA, Las Vegas area soon. What are some must things to do? Disneyland, shows, attractions, best hotels, options, etc. Would love to hear your thoughts." Well, listen, I'm not a travel guide. So, to me, yeah, you got to go to the Walk of Fame. You want to see the Dolby thing where the Oscars are held. You want to see the Chinese theater. If you can, maybe get out to Santa Monica and see the Santa Monica Pier. You're going to want to see the Hollywood sign and just all the touristy things. Again, I'm the wrong guy to ask because I'm not a really good tourist. Vegas, it depends on what you like to do. Like, I don't go to many shows in Vegas. I go to Vegas to relax and play poker and eat in the restaurants. Ann and I, though, our favorite restaurant in Vegas is Gordon Ramsay has about 5 different restaurants in Vegas, but our favorite restaurant to eat at in Vegas is one of Gordon Ramsay's restaurants. It's called Steak, and it's in the Paris Hotel. Steak in the Paris Hotel. It is our favorite restaurant in Vegas, so the one I would probably recommend is that particular restaurant to try. Other than that, it all depends. Whatever you like to do, there's a way to do it in Las Vegas. Vegas, baby. Vegas. Have a wonderful time, Benny, and of course, as always, stay safe with the whole situation going on in Australia, and I hope the recovery efforts go really, really well, my friend. So enjoy your trip, man. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, No offense, John. I'm rewatching an old episode of Movie Talk. You look better now than you've ever looked in any of these shows. Well, I'll try not to take that badly. Thank you, I guess. Anyway, 50 Shades also writes, hey, John, what do you think of X actor playing X role in an X-Men movie? Of course, for those of you who may not be regular viewers, I don't like taking questions about, John, what do you think of name an actor playing name a role? I don't like those. My answer is always just, as long as it's a good actor, I'm all for a good actor being cast in any role. Other than that, since I don't know the script, I don't know if they're a good fit or not, I'll just have to leave that to the director. So that's my general take on it at any rate. About what do you think of X movie actor in X role in an X-Men movie? Same principle applies. All right, 50 Shades also writes, John, you don't want to get away from the same old part you got to play. Wait, you don't want to get away from the same old part you want to play because I got what you need. So come with me and take a ride to the other side. Oh, I can't remember. That sounds deadly familiar, but I can't remember what it was. If you guys know what it is, I'm sure many of you are screaming at your computer monitors right now, knowing exactly what it is. But I cannot remember now. Jump down to the comment section, leave your thoughts there. All right. Trumpet Hero 93 writes, Neil, R.I.P. Neil Peart, a phenomenal Canadian musician. Again, I think you're going to find a lot of people that will agree with me. Probably the greatest drummer of all time. Still can't believe that he's gone. I mean, they were just touring as of recently. I was so shocked to hear the news. So shocked to hear the news. It's just a real loss. 50 Shades of Greek also writes, I guessed Mechagodzilla will be the doomsday character in Godzilla vs. Kong, as I'm sure many others did, but I completely changed my tune once I saw King of the Monsters. The post-credit scene suggested to me that would be Mecha King Ghidorah, however they pronounce it. Thoughts? I mean, no. I mean, the toy seems pretty clear. I mean, if we're going on what that leaked toy thing was, then that seems to make it pretty clear it is actually Mechagodzilla. Unless, now again, the picture was a little blurry, so maybe if we saw a sharper, more detailed thing, maybe a Mecha King Ghidorah would come into it. But as far as I could tell, and I could be way off on this, but it looks to me like it is a Mechagodzilla. And I agree with your initial thought. I believe this is going to be a doomsday situation in Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman are fighting each other. Then this big threat comes along in Doomsday. And now Batman and Superman, let's team up. And they fight Doomsday together. I'm guessing, like I think a lot of people are guessing, and like you guessed, that that's what we're going to get in this movie. It's that King Kong is going to fight Godzilla. And then along comes Mechagodzilla, and King Kong and Godzilla team up to take out Mechagodzilla. I could be way off, but that is the general guess right now. All right, ZOMG Ruler writes, opening weekend predictions, Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn, 80 million. I don't know what BW is. Guys, I got to encourage you, try not to use acronyms, because if I don't know what we're talking about, I don't know what we're talking about. WW, Wonder Woman 84, 140. I don't know, 80 seems high. For Birds of Prey, 80 seems high. I don't know what BW is. Wonder Woman 84, 140 might be a little high, but I could see north of 120. So yeah, I would guess that one's not bad. That one's not bad. Jimmy Anderson writes, hey John, what's your favorite death scene in the Grudge / Ju-On series? I love whenever Keiko crawls down those stairs and stares at you with those creepy eyes. Ju-On, the curse. Shit, man. It's been so long since I watched the original Ju-On. I remember me and my buddy did a review of the original Ju-On. This is back even before the movie blog days. Me and my friend had this little site that we ran just for a little while called moviereviews.org. It was movie-reviews.org. Now that I'm thinking about it, let me see. Movie-reviews. I want to see if anybody's got the domain now. It's been a long time since I've checked it out. Movie-reviews.org. And it's just parked. It's a parked website. So yeah, there you go. We used to do this. We had the domain name moviereviews.org. Haven't had it for over a decade. And I remember when we did a review of Ju-On. And I remember my buddy said, it's so tense. It's like somebody took a fistful of glass and shoved it up your butt. And I'm like, that is the most, I'm like, I don't even know how to respond to that. But yeah, it was like one of the absolute freakiest movies of all time. But man, it's been so long, so I don't know that I can pick out one single one. And by the way, I haven't seen the new Grudge. This new one. I just heard it was pretty bad, and so I haven't checked it out yet. And as far as the Sarah Michelle Gellar one, I mean, I saw it once, and so I don't even know where they went to on that. So can't say off the top of my head, but I do recommend anybody who hasn't seen the original Ju-On, definitely check it out. Definitely check it out because it's a freaky. If you enjoy those types of movies, it is a freaky experience. All right. Porg Hub writes, I like that name, writes, one of two. I hope Rob is still on when you get this. He is not, unfortunately, because I'd love to hear both of your opinions. Looking at Star Wars and Star Trek, both fandoms seem to be split with the new generation of films, which I believe is a grander reflection of how fandom in general is these days. We're all whiny little babies. Do sci-fi IP owners look at Bad Robot and see a pattern? No. And 202, and shy away from them for future productions? No. Or are too many other factors involved? With the company producing 5 of 6 of those films, I'd enter, for example, a future Battlestar Galactica movie with high skepticism if Bad Robot was producing. No, that has nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing. Look, the fact of the matter is, the Bad Robot Star Trek movies are by far the most successful thing Star Trek has ever done. Sorry, I mean even Robert acknowledges that. Like the other Star Trek films were waning and dying in quality and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying the new Star Trek movies are the best Star Trek movies ever, but they are by far the most popular. The Star Trek was a dead franchise. It was a dead franchise. The box office of each of the films was dropping and lower and lower until it became laughable. Laughable how little money those movies made. People didn't care about Star Trek anymore. It just is what it is. Other than a very core loyal group of fans that were literally dying off with age. They were not creating new fan bases. They were not winning new fans. They were not doing anything like that. It was a dying, dead fan base. The new Star Trek movies came along and they made more money than any of the previous Star Trek movies. And they're great. I'm a Star Trek fan and I love the new Star Trek. So it's great. There wasn't nearly that kind of a split that you see in Star Wars. And by the way, the first JJ film, most people really liked. Most people really liked The Force Awakens. By the way, Endgame, which is the all-time worldwide box office champion film, Endgame is not the number one domestic box office film of all time. It's still Star Wars The Force Awakens by a mile. Star Wars The Force Awakens is still the number one North American box office film in history, made over $2 billion, one of the biggest worldwide films of all time. Endgame is the biggest worldwide. But most people did. You didn't see that major division. Like the only division you really saw, and I don't want to go into it here, but I mean, really, the vast majority of people really liked The Force Awakens. Not everybody, but the vast majority, and that's all you can ask for. The real division didn't really happen until The Last Jedi. That's when the real division started. And that obviously wasn't J.J. Abrams. So there's that. J.J. then did the Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which is one I don't like. I love what he did with The Force Awakens. I thought he did such a great job on The Force Awakens. Rise of Skywalker, unfortunately, I didn't like. And that's fine. You're not going to like every movie. There are movies we don't like. This just happened to be one that I didn't, and that's perfectly fine. But a lot of people did like it. Like last I checked, it had like an 85% audience score, verified audience score, not some made up BS people who didn't even see the movie got to vote. Like verified audience score, it had like an 85%. Good for it. I mean, I didn't like it, but I'm glad other people did. But again, the major division came over the issue of The Last Jedi. That's where it really started, which had nothing to do with JJ. So what are we looking at here? If you're a studio and you're thinking about getting JJ and Bad Robot involved, what are you actually looking at? Well, you're looking at The Force Awakens, which made over $2 billion at the box office, one of the highest grossing films in history worldwide, and the highest box office grossing film in the history of the North American box office. That's what you're looking at. And you're looking at Star Trek movies that blew the previous 8 Star Trek movies financially out of the water. So, and they are not nearly as divisive as some of the hardcore Star Trek fans would lead you to believe, because the vast majority of the movie audience really liked the new Star Trek. I mean, they just did. Rob acknowledges that himself. Rob is one of those old school hardcore Star Trek fans that he doesn't like the new Star Trek stuff. And that's fine. But even he will tell you that, yeah, the majority of the average audience really does like the new Star Trek. And that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. So no big deal. But yeah, Porg, if you're a studio and you're looking at, from a business perspective, of what has happened with Bad Robot and J.J. Abrams movies, tons of success and tons of money. Tons of success and tons of money. And yeah, they will go with them. And listen, if he can do for Battlestar Galactica what he did for Star Trek, I would love it. Because I like what he did with the new Star Trek. I mean, I didn't love Into Darkness, granted, but I really love the other two. And I love The Force Awakens. I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, they're looking at him and they aren't hesitating. They are not hesitating to work with him. I absolutely guarantee that. That's why Warner Brothers just gave him such a huge massive deal to come to Warner Brothers, because they knew the stuff he makes succeeds. And not everything will. Not everything will. But they know what he does works. And the numbers prove it. The numbers prove it. And again, the big controversy stuff in the split over in Star Wars really only took place in The Last Jedi, which was a film that he didn't do. So that's what you got to keep in mind. All right. Benny95 writes, okay, just got out of seeing 1917, and it was incredible. The cinematography was 10 out of 10. Acting was faultless. Intensity high. Third best film of 2019, in my opinion. Ford v Ferrari is second, and Joker first. About 30 minutes when that big moment happened, and I had no idea what to expect from there on. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's a phenomenal film. It's in my top 10 of the year. It didn't crack my top 3. Doesn't crack my top 3, but it is absolutely a top 10 film of the year. It is absolutely remarkable. Actually, my wife, when I saw it with Anne came out thinking, and I said, what do you think? She goes, I got to see it again, but it might be one of my favorite movies ever. Like, not just of the year. Like, her response is, it might be one of her favorite films ever. So that's the type of reaction that a lot of people are getting. Not everybody likes it, which is surprising to me. It doesn't have as high of a critic or fan rating as you might think, but to me, it's absolutely remarkable. I'm glad you enjoyed it, dude. All right. Damo Davies writes, as a British citizen, I tend to place a slightly higher value on the BAFTAs to the Oscars. Of course you do. That's perfectly understandable. What do you think to their creation of Best Casting Award? I didn't know that they did that. I think it's fantastic. I love the idea of a Best Casting Award. I didn't know that they did that. So good on them. I hope that's something that the Oscars do. I think casting could absolutely, because unlike, say, stunts, the Academy can't vote on best stunts because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They have no idea what, as somebody who just watches the movie, you have no idea what went into that. You can see the results of acting. You can see the results of directing. You can see the results. You can hear the words of the screenplay. You can see the costuming. You can blah, blah, blah. But the things they literally have no idea about what went on. What goes on behind the scenes as far as stunts, they don't know. So that makes it very problematic for doing a stunt category. But casting is something you can see. And you get a feel for, wow, this thing was brilliantly cast. They can tell that. So I'm all for the Oscars adopting it. If the BAFTAs beat them to the punch, that's great. I absolutely think the Oscars could adopt that one as well. All right. Blake writes, that was Damo, right? Yes, it was. All right. Blake writes, do you think part of the reason Avatar 2 has taken so long is that Cameron is trying to develop no glasses 3D? If he wants to break records again, then it's going to need gimmick/new tech, in my opinion. 3D and great CGI aren't new anymore. Thanks. No, I think I think there's just a lot of things that went into it. I think there's a lot of things. There was new technology, but it wasn't glasses-less 3D. That's the only thing that's going to make me interested in 3D again, because I do not care about 3D. I think it's a stupid, useless gimmick that adds nothing to a movie. I know there are people who disagree with me, and that's totally cool. But just for me as a film fan's point of view, there's absolutely nothing valuable about 3D. I think it's useless. Now, you introduce 3D that doesn't require me to wear glasses. I'm at least curious about that. Because to me, to this day, one of my biggest arguments is, why on earth do we have cinematographers and directors make these incredible images with rich colors and blah, 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 and the first thing we do when we walk into a theater is slap some tinted film over our eyes? How does that make any sense in the world? For a stupid little gimmick that doesn't actually add anything to a movie, in my opinion. Glasses-less 3D? All right, there could be some there, but I don't think that's what the delay is. All right, just time for a couple more here, guys. Damo Davies writes, after watching Joker, my brother asked who my favorite Joker performance was. Jack is still mine, and he said I was just biased. Aren't all fans biased? Well, no, see, here's the thing. This brings up a really big pet peeve of mine, Damo. People say you're biased. What do you mean bias? Bias means you have a particular vested interest in it. Like, I'm sorry, do you get money? Does the studio send you money if more people say they like Jack than anybody else? If not, then how is it bias? Somebody's asking, who's your favorite? That means you've watched all these actors play this role. Who is your favorite? Well, Jack was my favorite. Like, are you related to Jack Nicholson? Is he your uncle? Because then maybe you have bias. This whole thing, like, so many people don't understand the English language, and it drives me crazy. It's like, who's your favorite basketball player? I think my favorite basketball player of all time is probably Larry Bird. Love Larry Bird. Grew up watching Larry Bird, so I love Larry Bird. You're biased. How am I biased? He's not my uncle. I don't get money when people give me that. I just think he's the greatest thing. No, you're just biased. It drives me crazy. It's just a little bit of a sign that somebody is a little bit ignorant when you misuse the word bias. How are you saying Jack is your favorite Joker in any way biased? Unless, of course, it can be proven that Jack is a direct relative of yours, or you get some sort of financial payment if more people like it. That's the only way it's biased. Otherwise, it's just what you think. There is no pre-existing bias in play, and I just hate the way people misuse the word bias at that. Anyway, that's just me. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, Fernandez's live stream was heartbreaking. I could tell there was so much he wanted to say, but didn't know how to. It happens to me a lot. Thank you so much for giving him a proper chance to address everything that happened. No, and I think, listen, I'm not going to pretend that me and Mark Fernandez, the CEO of Collider, are now suddenly magically on great terms. I'm not going to pretend that we are, but I thought Mark showed a lot of guts by doing the Collider Town Hall in the first place. And then I think he showed a lot of commitment to trying to be clear about his message by coming on this show. And I thought that showed a lot of guts on his part to do that. And I personally think he acquitted himself much better than he did on the town hall meeting. And I give kudos to him. I really do. I think he did a much better job acquitting himself and communicating what it was he was actually trying to say. It doesn't mean you had to agree or disagree with what it was he was trying to say, but I thought it was important that he at least effectively get across what it is he was actually trying to communicate. And then you can agree with what he was saying or disagree with him, fine, as long as you're agreeing or disagreeing with what it was he was actually trying to communicate. And I thought he did a very good job, at least a much better job when he came into studio here to clarify a lot of his thoughts and statements than on that original one. And I think that showed a lot of commitment on his part to do that, and particularly a commitment to communicate what was really on his mind to the audience. And I think we need, whether you agreed or disagreed with what he said, I think a lot of us need to take our hat off to him for that and what he was able to do in that interview. So thanks for saying that. All right, I said that was the last one, but I'll make this one the last one. 50 Shades also writes, given your already complicated relationship with Mark Fernandez, after inviting him into your show, my already sky-high appreciation for you was shot into space and landed on the moon. Not too many people would do that. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that, 50 Shades. Again, though, I have, going back to what we were just talking about, I have pre-existing bias because Collider isn't just some random site out there. The Collider Video is something that I built with some very talented, great people. But I mean, even those people are the people I put in place to build it. And so I'm always going to have an incredibly soft spot in my heart for what goes on at Collider Video. Less now that all the shows that we had are now gone, like Jedi Council, Heroes, Movie Talk, all that kind of stuff. Now that all those shows are gone, I'm going to have a little bit less of a soft spot, but notwithstanding, there's still a little bit of a soft spot. And even if I'm mad at the place or mad at Mark or whatever, it doesn't change the fact that I don't want to see it blow up. I never have. And I thought it was important for Mark. And again, I think there's a lot of leaders that wouldn't have done it, and Mark did. And you got to respect that. I think there's a lot of leaders who wouldn't have done what Mark did by coming out and facing the audience and facing hard questions. And he stood there and he took the hard questions. He answered them. I thought he did a very good job answering them. So, yeah, there's that. But anyway, I thank you for the kind words, 50 Shades. I really do appreciate that. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for now. We still have a bunch to get caught up on, and we will get caught up on these later, of course. But that's all the time that we've got here for now for this installment of the pre-recorded. Normally, Open Mic is totally live. This is a pre-recorded edition of Open Mic, and that's all the time we got for now. Don't forget, guys, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow. That's me and Robert Meyer Burnett talking about all our favorite stuff. We're already working on some news stories for tomorrow. I hope you guys are going to have the time to stop in and join us for that as well. Special thanks to all you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel along the way. And all of us here on the John Campea YouTube channel, myself, Ray, fact checker Jonathan, Chris, Aaron, Robert, all of us here, thank you so much for supporting the content that you guys enjoy watching. All right, guys, that will do it for me from now. Hopefully you come back and join us again tomorrow. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.